Good morning, everybody. It's Amber Hug here with Schwarzkopf Professional, your National Education Manager. And today we're here for the Ask Me Anything. This is our third one, guys. So thank you for tuning in. We're out here in Culver City, California. And as you can see behind me are a bunch of bowls of color. And we thought if we're talking about vibrance, why not have this beautiful display of color behind me? So today we would love for you to type your questions into the chat box. But before we get started, I want to tell you how you can have your questions answered one-on-one. So if you go to switchwithskp.com, you can actually book a one-on-one with an educator from Schwarzkopf that is an expert on vibrance, and you can ask them any questions you want. So I'm going to answer as much as I can here on this page, and you can follow me today, type in your questions. But if you have questions that I didn't get to yet, then you can always book a one-on-one appointment. And so we will show you a video at the end exactly how to do that, but it's on our switchwithskp.com page. So we're going to start by getting to some of the questions that maybe last week we didn't get to. So even if you type in questions we don't get to it this week, guess what? This is a weekly thing. So ask me anything, and if I don't get to it today, I will definitely get to it next week. Before we get started, I would love to hear, where is everybody in from? Type into the chat box and let me know where you are. I'm here in Culver City, California. So I'd love to see where you guys are coming in from. And, I'm going to take a look and see and find out where we have people tuning in from. But let's start with, what is a question from last week that we can answer? All right. So we have, can you talk about the high lifts on gray blondes? So have you ever had that issue where you're trying to cover gray, but you're also trying to go blonde? It's a hard one, right? So if you use a 10 or 12 series, what happens is you get a weird tint on the gray hair, but you're still getting lift on the rest, but it just doesn't look quite right. But if I go down to a level 9, that's too dark. Did you know that in our Blonde Me range, we actually have something called a lift and blend shade? I know it says lift and blend, but it is also 100% gray coverage. So think of it like this. With our lift and blend shades, you're getting up to 4 levels of the naturally pigmented hair while toning the gray hair, giving this beautiful multi-dimensional blonde. And when I say toning the gray hair, what I mean by that is you're getting 100% gray coverage, but that gray coverage that you're getting is going to be multi-dimensional because you're going to have some underlying warmth with the lift. And when you're toning that gray hair, it might be a slightly different shade, hence that multi-dimension. So in our lift and blend shades, we do have an ice shade, we have an ice iris, we have a sand, we have several different shades, but if you haven't seen them yet, the box will look like this, but on the end, instead of having a T for toner, it will have LB for lift and blend. So definitely check that out if you haven't yet. And I see that we've got some people. I said I would see where people are here. I have somebody from Palm Springs on. Next question I want to get to. Remember, type in your questions into the chat box. These questions we're doing right now are from last week, but I would love to hear from you as well. How to use the 12 series without getting too much brass. How many of you out there have used a 12 series, which is lift series in IGORA VIBRANCE in this box? 12 series is a high lift series. The biggest hint on this is that in a high lift, you need to be a level 6 or above. If you're using this blue box on anything lower than a level 6, you're going to get brassiness. So this is meant to give me up to lift and tone, but on virgin hair only. That means if my hair is already colored, I cannot use this. However, if I'm doing bleach and tone retouch, my client is already a level 6 or 7, I could use my 12 series. So to not get brassiness with your 12 series, first of all, make sure you're using it on the right client. So if my client is a level 6 or above, this is a perfect opportunity. This 12-2. This is my ash, which is a blue base. When I hear brass, I think orange. And when I think orange, I think what is going to counteract orange? And that is going to be my blue base. So this would be a great one for those brassy clients, and also making sure you're using it on the correct client. Now, remember, guys, type your questions into the chat box. I would love to hear from you today so that we can answer your question live today, but we'll continue to answer questions from before. But we were just talking about the high lift series. So I want to talk about who is the perfect candidate for a high lift. I know I mentioned anyone that's a level 6 or above, but also to pay attention to features. Somebody with lighter eyes, lighter skin tone, a finer hair texture is a perfect candidate for a high lift series. My money piece in front is actually done with a 10 series, not even the 12 series. And I just use that with 30 volume for my new growth, but I am a level 7 natural. I have fine hair, lighter eyes, and a lighter skin tone. The more pigment somebody has, or if they have an olive skin tone, they have more underlying warmth, so they may have more brassiness. So for me, I don't have a lot of underlying warmth, but if you have somebody with blue eyes and they have a dark rim around the outside, or maybe they have brown specks, a lot of times that's an indicator of underlying warmth. So I highly recommend do a test strand first, somewhere around the under with your 12 series, see how it lifts first before using it on your client. So I encourage you all, please type your questions into the chat box. We will answer them for you. But in the meantime, we have some questions from last week that didn't get answered. So I see everything. You want to hear about everything. You're using another brand and you find that it fades quickly. So our brand is not going to fade as quickly. We have a high definition technology in our permanent hair color range. And that high definition technology uses a combination of pigment matrices along with a lipid carrier system that allows us to have a color brand that's actually going to last longer. And by lipid carrier system, that lipid is actually in our Agora Real developers. And that lipid is an oil that helps to create shine to the hair. It's going to lock in your hair color. It's going to give longevity to that hair color and better gray coverage, along with more vibrancy in your tones. So remember, if you are using Agora Real, use your dedicated developer because that lipid carrier system is going to help you with that longevity. So if you are like that person here that is using another color brand and you got a lot of fadage, use our brand. It talks about the how technology and vibrance. In vibrance, called Aquasil technology. The Aquasil technology is a combination of vitamins B3 and B5 in combination with sugar molecules. This is going to crystallize on the outside of your hair strand, giving your hair extreme shine and locking in more on the inside of that strand of hair. So you can see on the screen here, it's showing you a visual of how this is working and maintaining the moisture on the inside hair. So the Aquasil technology that we have in Vibrance is what's going to give you that longevity. So if you are struggling with your current brand on longevity, highly recommend that you try Vibrance. Now continue to questions into the chat box. We're getting some, so I'm going to start doing some of the live questions. So I encourage you, if you have a question at the top of mind that you're thinking of, go ahead and type it into the chat box. So question I have here, does 5-0 cover 100% gray? Now that is a loaded question because it's 5-0 Agora Real or environments. So I'm going to answer both. 5-0 in Agora Real will give you 100% gray coverage on its own. If you're using 5-0 in Vibrance, this is a Demi permanent, you will get up to 50% gray coverage or gray blending. So if you're looking for 100% gray with 5-0, you will achieve that with Agora Real. Now, twofold on that, with Agora Real, there are actually several segments that give you 100% gray coverage on its own. I'm going to start by opening up my swatch book here. On our naturals page, which is our first page, there are several different segments. Our -1, which is our cendre or blue violet, is going to give you 100% gray coverage on its own. Now, how do I know that? Take a look at the bottom of this swatch here. On the very bottom, you can see it says 100%. That means I'm getting 100% gray coverage. Now, let me pull another swatch out. If we see the bottom here, it says 70%. That means I'm only getting 70% gray coverage. So if you're new to Schwarzkopf and you don't know what gives 100% gray coverage, get an intro deal, get your, and it will tell you what gives you 100% gray coverage. Now, -4, which is our beige, also gives 100% gray coverage. And then we also have -0, but -00, which is my natural extra. This is for my coarse resistant gray hair clients. This one's going to have 25% more pigment weight. So not only does 5-0 cover 100% gray, but 5-1, which is cendre or blue violet, and 5-4, which is my beige, will also give me 100% gray coverage, which is phenomenal. And I can mix any of these ranges in with anything that gives me up to 70% gray coverage to achieve 100% gray coverage, which is phenomenal. So next question that we have here, what about dyeing relaxed hair? You know, the beauty of using Schwarzkopf products, whether it's Agora Real or using Agora Vibrance, is that we make sure our products are healthy enough to put on any type of hair. If you are coloring relaxed hair though, I would recommend using Vibrance. And I recommend Vibrance because it is our Demi permanent range. And when somebody has relaxed hair, hairstylists should know what relaxed hair is, but just in case you don't, a relaxer is when somebody has really tight, curly, coily hair and they've done a chemical service or chemical treatment that helps to straighten that tight, curly, coily hair. Now, those relaxers can already cause a little bit of damage. So the question about can I color relaxed hair is that you don't really want to damage that hair anymore. What I would recommend is maybe don't try to use a lightener on that relaxed hair, but if you want to color the hair with Vibrance, it's going to be a gentle formula and you can absolutely color that relaxed hair with our Agora Vibrance. Next question, can you use the high lift on previously lightened hair? Great question. So this is a twofold answer. So the high lift we were talking about before, can you use this on previously lightened hair? My inclination is to say no. According to manufacturer recommendations, hair that's already been lightened is already going to have some slight damage to it. And this has a higher alkalinity level than, say, a regular tube of Agora Real. That alkalinity comes from the ammonia that's inside your tube of color. And in order to achieve that extra lift, you need more ammonia. So if that hair has already been lightened, this wouldn't be my best bet for toning. Because I imagine if you're trying to use a high lift on hair that's been lightened, you're trying to either achieve a little bit more lift or tone on that previously colored hair. So instead, what I would recommend is we do have permanent toners in the Agora Real range. Your toners are called 9.5 series. They are pastel toners. They are in your swatch book in towards the back. The 9.5 series will be on the blondes page, and that is your toner. 9.5 is not a level 9.5. As a matter of fact, if you look at the bottom of this swatch, there's nothing there. You know why? There is no gray coverage to these. It would be 30% gray blending at most. They're meant to be truly toners to tone on previously colored lightened hair at a level 9 or above. So if your reason for choosing a high lift to put on high or already lightened hair was to create more lift and maybe tone, try our 9.5 series instead. With 10 volume, you can achieve that slight little bit more lift and also tone at the same time. So try that out. Next question we have here, Antoinette Chair, because Vibrance is alkaline, will it shift the base at all when toning? Great question. So our Agora Vibrance is an alkaline base. If you're familiar with an acidic base, you know that with an acidic base, I'm closing that hair cuticle, but that hair color then sits on the outside of that hair cuticle. So with an alkaline base, I'm actually above that pH neutral, which is the 7, and I'm opening that hair cuticle, which is a benefit because some of those color pigments are going to the interior and some are sitting on the outside, which means I'm getting better coverage. But the risk is, am I going to create lift? With Agora Vibrance, if you use 13 volume, you do a slight shift on the base, up to 1 level at most on fine hair. If you have coarse hair, it'd be up to a half level. If you use your 6 volume Vibrance, that's where you're going to minimize the shift on the base. So if you're going to tone, highly recommend 6 volume. If you're my client has really fine hair, I can't even risk the slight potential of a lift on pigmented hair. We have toners in our Blonde Me range and they are pH neutral. What does pH neutral mean? That means I will not risk any shift or lift on the natural base of that hair color. So the answer to that question is, if I want 0 lift in Vibrance, I want to use 6 volume developer and I will not achieve lift. If you use a 13 volume, you can get a slight shift to that base. If you're really concerned about it and you want to make sure there's 0 lift, that's where your Blonde Me toners come in handy. You want to use these with your 7 volume dedicated Blonde Me developer. Now, real quick, notice this developer bottle might look different than the top of this one. If you're receiving bottles that are like this rather than this, just know it is still your amazing Blonde Me developers. It's just a flip cap. So that makes it a little bit easier for you to just squeeze this right out of the bottle. So just know that that is just new packaging. It doesn't mean there's any change to the formulation. It is just new packaging. So next question is from Angela. Does zero ammonia color have lifting shades like chocolate, or does it lift level 3 hair to a level 6? That is an excellent question. So I actually have a swatch book for Agora Zero as well. So for those of you that don't know, our Agora Zero is our zero ammonia hair color. This means that we are using an MEA versus ammonia to make a permanent hair color. You're still getting 100% gray coverage in your Agora Zero shades, but your question is about lift. Can I still achieve lift? And what's amazing about Agora Zero is that you can still achieve lift. Now, you're talking lift in chocolate shades. So I'm going to take a look at the chocolate shades we have here. When we're looking, I have a -6, so a 6-6, which is level 6 chocolate. You're talking about lifting on a level 3. So with Agora Vibrance, you can achieve in our high lift series up to 4 levels of lift. The high lift series is our 10 series. Now, this question appears to be if I'm lifting somebody from a level 3 to a level 6. I would say if you use your 6-6 with 30 volume on a finer hair texture, 30 volume would probably be enough. On a coarser hair texture, you could use up to 40 volume, and that would achieve that up to 3 to 4 levels of lift. So you are able to achieve lift with Agora Zero if you're using the proper developer. So I hope that answered that question. Thank you for that. So next question here is about our absolutes. Now, if you're like, I don't know what an absolute is, I'm going to tell you what it is. So absolutes, these are pre-blended fashion shades, coppers, your golds, your chocolates, your reds. What do I mean by pre-blended? I mean that you get 100% gray coverage no matter what color you choose in this range. So on your question, does it give 100% gray coverage? I think I just answered it, but let's take a quick look at the shades that are available in our absolutes. So you can see the chocolates, the reds, the coppers, the golds. What's amazing about these is no matter which color I choose, there is 30% more pigment weight in our absolutes than there is in our Agora Real, which means if you have clients with coarse resistant white hair that you're trying to cover their gray, this is an excellent choice. Also, if you are new to switching over to Schwarzkopf and you're using Agora Real for gray coverage, absolutes are absolutely going to need to be in your back bar because these are going to be a one and done. So if I want to get this beautiful copper shade here, I know that I can take 770 level 7 copper natural, and I can put this on the hair and get 100% gray coverage and not have to mix it with anything else. And I get that 30% more pigment weight. Also, there is collagen and ciliamines. It's a pro-age complex. That collagen is filling in brittle sites, and the ciliamines are smoothing that hair cuticle. So we all know with coarse hair, it tends to not be as soft. So those ciliamines are going to smooth that hair, making that hair even softer. Not only am I going to get 100% gray coverage with anything on this page, but I'm also going to make that hair feel better. So it's a premium gray coverage line in your chocolates, your golds, your coppers, your reds, and we have some neutral shades that are already here for you that have like our cendre, which is our blue violet with a natural. So I hope if you haven't tried them yet that you pick some up because these are a perfect start to your journey to switching to Schwarzkopf. So reminder, I'm going to go to the next question, but don't forget to type your questions into the chat box so that we can answer them. If we don't get to them today, we will get to them next week. If you want a more in-depth answer, don't forget to go to our switchwithskp.com page and book your appointment with an educator one-on-one so that you can ask them specific questions and get a specific answer. So moving on to our next question. So we have here from, okay, I am using 6-65. That's a level 6 chocolate gold for global on a 4 to 6 inch regrowth. So they're talking regrowth 4 to 6 inches. We're talking here. Last previous color was a level 7 on the client. She color washed out fast. What do we do for this case? So what they're saying is they use 6-65 here, and that client had 6 inches of regrowth, and they were natural level 7. Okay, real talk. We've all seen it. Somebody who's naturally a level 7 or naturally a level 8, sometimes their hair doesn't want to take color, or when it does, it doesn't want to stay very long. Now, I don't know if you're that you were using 6-65 in Agora Riel or if you were using it in Vibrance, but I will tell you, I had a friend that she was a level 7 naturally, and we would take and put a level 5 on her hair, and it always looked closer to a level 6. It never truly went down to that level 5. So I started trying to bring her down to, say, a level 4 to try to get her to where it to be and to get it to last, and it didn't work. So what did I do? I went into the absolutes that we were just talking about. So if you have a client who's the color seems to want to fade quickly, or maybe they're a level 7 and it just doesn't seem to want to color the level you want to go, using these absolutes, because they have weight, these will give you the level that you want. So for my friend that didn't want to hold on to color, I mean, I would color her hair and the top might be good, but then underneath didn't. So I started using this and I was able to use the desired level. So I don't say go ahead and use absolutes on anyone that's a level 7. I know for my own hair color, I color it and I'm a redhead. It stays very well. But every once in a while, what happens is those level 7 naturally just has a tight cuticle and it doesn't want to get as deep into that hair strand. So that's where the absolutes have that more pigment weight to get deeper into that hair strand. So I hope that was able to help you on that one, but that could be why the hair wash out a little bit quicker. The next question we have here. So the question says, reflect is copper red. What we do, and my target is a 6-65 global highlight beige gold without pre-lightened. So this is the same person, so trying to give me more information. So with the 6-65, you're getting that as your reflect, but 6-65 is your goal. So with this one, what I recommend is go ahead and book your appointment. So book an appointment with a one-on-one educator. We can understand your question a little bit better. I hope I answered why it might have faded and maybe some ideas of colors to use. But that one seems like one you could definitely book an appointment with an educator and get a little more in depth on that. So next question that we absolute 7-470, is that one discontinued? That is a great question. I don't know. If you have trouble at your distributor getting a certain shade, you can always look on their website. Typically, what happens if you're going into a store is they only keep a certain number. Now, in absolutes, the 7-470, I do believe that one is still in. Oh, actually, I can tell you right now that one has been. No, I think that's one we do have. Actually, there it is, 7-7470. So I don't know for sure if it's been discontinued, but I can check on that one and get back to you next week. But what I will tell you is if you have trouble getting a shade like that at your distributor, go to their website. Typically, there's more on their website than what they have in store. The other part is it might say discontinued at your distributor, but it might just be out of stock. So if it's not available today, maybe check in a so, and that particular shade is discontinued and let you know on Ask Me Anything next week. So make sure that you tune in next week. I will get you that answer. So let's see. We've got another question here. If I want any shade for EQ, if I use 7-65, which volume should I use, 20 or 30 volume? In case, is there possibility to get quicker brassy in one color? Okay, so I'm gonna go with the 7-65. And which volume should you use? 7-65 is a level 7 and it is a chocolate gold. So that one's meant to be a little bit more warm. I actually do chocolate gold series because it's great in Vibrance and in Agora Real. It's great as a low light in hair. So that chocolate gold, that's what like right here. On their own, they get up to 70% gray coverage in Agora Real. If you want 100% coverage, you can mix them with anything that gives you 100% gray coverage. So with this, if you're talking brassiness, this is already a warm shade. It's chocolate first and has a gold reflect. So if I use 20 volume, it's gonna definitely still have that warm shade. If you use 30 volume, is there a chance to see more warmth? And I'm going to say yes. And the reason why is anytime that you create lift in hair, you create more underlying warmth. You're giving more lift, therefore you're noticing more underlying warmth, and that will contribute to your end result. So you have options. Do you use 30 volume with this, or do you just mix this with maybe a -1, which is a cendre, to soften it so that you get a softer shade? So that's up to you how you want to do that based on what you want to see as your final color. But if you're looking for something that does have warmth, this -65 is phenomenal. And for those of you that want a really great low light for blondes, in Vibrance, we have these shades as well, and 8-65 is a go-to of mine. That gold almost acts as a filler and leaves the most beautiful low light in hair. So if you haven't tried that, definitely give it a shot. So thank you. Okay, so next question here. I usually use 6-0 for hair, and it's great. How do I cover the gray? It still doesn't cover, but I don't want it to go too dark. I believe that is a common question. So if I use -0, maybe 6-0 didn't give me enough gray coverage, and I'm looking for better gray coverage at a level 6, and I don't want it to look deeper. Biggest concerns people have is that 6-0 is my natural. 6-00 is natural extra. This is something that I can use on somebody if I'm looking for more intense gray coverage. Because with these, there's 25% more pigment weight in -00 than there is -0. However, if I'm to hold a 6-0 next to a 6-00, the 6-00 can appear deeper. It's still the same color pigment, but think about it like this. If I have a tube that's the same size and I put beads in this tube or jelly beans or whatever, I fill this one with 20 jelly beans and I fill this one with 50 jelly beans, be more dense than the other. So something that's more dense is going to appear deeper to the eye. So for your question, I would say your best bet, if you need to add a -00 for that added gray coverage, maybe mix a 6-00 with a 7-00 to get something in between to where you're still at that level 6, but it doesn't appear deeper to the eye. The other thing about the -00 series to kind of keep you in a safe zone. This is meant to be used with 20 or 30 volume, but let me give you the rules and the why. 20 volume in -00 series is going to give you 100% gray coverage and is perfect if you're 100% white, 90 to 100%. But think about it like this. If I take color and put it on a white strand and it's meant to be a level 6, but then I take that same level 6 and put it on an already colored strand of hair, it might look darker. So we recommend if you're under 90% white to use 30 volume. That's going to make it so that my balloon is a little more sheer. So two ways to think of it. I'm getting more lift so that when I deposit that 6-00 looks more like a level 6. Or think about it like this. My pigments in my tube of color are like balloons. So if I blow my balloon up to 20 volume, it's a pretty dense color balloon still. If you think of a flat balloon, it's a very dense color, and as it blows up, it gets more sheer. So 20 volume pigment weight is still going to be pretty dense, and on 90 to 100% gray, it's perfect. But sometimes that can be too much if I put it on a strand of already pigmented. So blow that balloon up to 30 volume, make it a little more sheer so that when I put it on hair that already has pigment, it's not going to look deeper. So either 30 volume with your 6-00 or mix a level 6 and a level 7 together when you're mixing 6-00 into your formula to truly see that level 6. So I hope that answered that question for you. And if it didn't, remember, go to our switchwithskp.com page and book your one-on-one appointment with one of our educators. We're going to move on. We've got a lot of other questions here. So let's see. Book one-on-one appointment with an educator. Awesome. All right. We use 00 series with 30 volume. Great. So hopefully that you love using the 00. We were just talking about that. That's these shades right here. Using these with that 30 volume will make it so that these shades do not go too deep. That is that extra pigment weight. And so if you notice that you've used 6-00 on somebody that maybe you were using 6-0 before and it seemed deep, that is the why. I will tell you, I do not use these shades by themselves often at all. Reason why. If we look at this lovely color circle that I love to use all the time, On my color circle in the back of my book, if we look and see where the -0 versus -00 sits, both of them sit over here. But my -00 sits this way, which means it's closer to this matte area. So -00 tends to be a little more matte, which is cooler. If something is cooler, it can appear deeper. So that being said, on its own, -00 tends to be almost just mossy. So I don't like to use these by themselves often unless somebody wants that kind of shoe shine, that really shoe polish gray coverage. A lot of times I mix these into my formulas. So that's a more common way to use the -00 is mixing it into a formula rather than using it by itself. And I will tell you, if you mix these into a formula, 20 volume is enough. You don't need to mix 20 volume for the amount of my regular color and 30 volume for the -00. Literally, if I'm mixing this into my formula, I only need 1/3 of my formula with the -00 series. That's going to give me that 100% gray coverage and will help give me gray coverage on that coarse resistant white hair. So I hope that answered that. And we've got a couple more questions that have come in. So -6 in Vibrance, it has more red reflections. How do I get rid of the red reflections? Should I add a -22? Great question. We were taught the color circle before. Oopsies, we're knocking some things over here. Okay, so I want to take a look at this color chart. So when we're looking at this, -6 sits right here on this color circle. So that means it's right here in that orange, yellow, orange area. So when I hear -6, we call that chocolate or warm brown. So it's called chocolate, warm. Warm brown means copper reflection. So if you look at this, I think of the -6 series as more of like a cinnamon. When I see cinnamon, it looks like a rich brown, but has this hint of a reflection. So the reason that you're seeing that red reflection is because there is that little bit of copper undertone to that chocolate shade. If I think about copper is what I'm seeing, you could add -22 to that formula, or there are different options within the Vibrance range that you can use. So let's grab our Vibrance book. Talk about those options. There are two different things that are shades that I like to use that are chocolate that will also be a little less intense. So actually one of the first ones is our -46. These are one of my favorite shades. It's beige first, but has a chocolate reflection. So this is going to be a little softer on that red, like red reflection that you're seeing. However, -63 is a chocolate matte. Chocolate matte means that I'm going to have a green that's going to counteract any red. So it's going to be this deep, rich chocolate shade, and it's going to have a green to counteract that. The other option, remember I was talking about the -65 before as a low light. -65 is a chocolate but has gold reflection. So for somebody that doesn't mind the warmth of chocolate, but they just don't a red reflection, rather see more of a gold reflection, this is perfect for them. Now I was trying to find the swatch -63 and I'm not seeing it in this book right now, so I will show you that one later on. But -63 is one of my favorite chocolate shades. We're going to find it over here because I know we have it over in here somewhere. But it is going to be that deep, rich chocolate shade. But that matte or that green that's in there is going to counteract any warmth that you're going to see. So options are use 6-63 for your chocolate shade, or 6-65, keep that reflection and that brightness, but also have more of a gold reflection versus that red reflection. So I hope that helped. Okay, so next question is going to be, what would be an equivalent to shades 7AG? So AG, to me, ash gold is what we're saying here. So ash gold, what is it that we have that's going to be closest to your ash gold? So there are a couple different options here. And I would say that -42 is going to be one of my options that I think would be a best bet for you. What is 42? Beige ash. So this has beige first. So it's going to have that beige, which is your muted gold. And then it has ash. That ash is going to be a new color that's going to give you kind of that pearlized shade that you're looking for. Another option that I love for this one is -16. 16 is going to be a Cendré chocolate. Now I'm trying to find this swatch here. It's somewhere. There we go. I know this is a level 6, but 6-16. It's a level 6, and it is a Cendré first and then a chocolate. So you could always mix that one, even with a level 9 if you wanted to. But my top one for you for 7AG would be 7-42, which is that beige first and then the ash. So try it out. Let me know what your thoughts are. And then next up we have, how can we give a light shade to a white strand without lift to the natural base? How can we give a light shade to a white strand without lift to the natural base? So white strand, we've got white hair. If you're looking for just deposit on white hair, we have a lot of colors that are going to give you deposit. Now, if you're talking on a white strand, I'm thinking of 100% gray and then not lifting the natural base, which tells me you're talking salt and pepper. So how can I get gray coverage without lift? Your best opportunity to get gray coverage without lift is to actually use vibrance. So I have a lot of salons or like a lot of clients that are like, okay, I've used a permanent hair color on my hair and it's too brassy every time. I want it to be a natural level 7 and it ends up being gold. Why is it gold? Well, that's because I'm creating lift and that lift is giving me the gold. I will tell you, vibrance can give you up to 70% white blending. Now, I say white blending. What does that mean? Think about it like this. If I'm doing gray coverage with permanent color, I'm lifting the natural base and depositing on that color, giving an all over one shade of color. If I'm using vibrance, I'm not lifting the natural base, I'm just depositing. So that deposit may not go as low as what the color is. Therefore, it's more multi-dimensional. So that's what we mean by gray blending, is it's blending, toning those gray shades. Now, if you're looking for maybe an option that would create less lift than maybe Agora Real, but doesn't deposit quite like Vibrance because you still need that gray coverage, maybe try Agora Zero. So with Agora Zero, you're using MEAs versus ammonia. I am still able to achieve lift with this, but maybe try using 10 volume with this and using these shades instead to help not give lift. So I think I answered that question. It was kind of a tricky one because you wanted to get the white strand without lifting the natural base. My best option for you would be Vibrance. The next option up, if you need more gray coverage than that, would be Agora Zero. So hopefully that helps. So next question we have here, and reminder, if you haven't typed your question in yet, and you have this burning question in the back of your mind, just know there are no all questions are good questions, so just type them into the chat box. The next question we have, which Agora Caramel Toner is good on a level 8 pre-lightened hair? That's all personal preference, right? So my favorite story is about one of my clients that came in with a jar of caramel and said, this is what color I want my highlights to be. So that was really funny to me. But there are a lot of caramel shades that I think are really great for a level 8. So it depends on what you think of caramel, because everybody's idea of caramel is a little bit different. So one of my favorite caramel shades for a level 8 is going to be, we're going back to these nude tones, -46. It's a beige first and then a chocolate. So it gives you that beige, which is our muted gold, and then a chocolate reflection. So it's really great to give you that caramel shade that isn't too warm. Now, if you're somebody that's like, actually, I really like warm, I would really like to see more warm in that shade, the -65. We talked about those earlier. I think it's an underutilized shade. -65 here, I know if you look, there's a level 7 and a level 9. We don't have a level 8, but guess what? If you do equal parts of a level 7 and a level 9, you can create your level 8. Is a great option for you to get that beautiful caramel shade on a pre-lightened level 8. There are a lot more options, but those are a couple of my favorites. I always say play around with shades. Maybe mix a -46, which is my beige chocolate, and mix it with that -65, which is a chocolate gold. Or maybe I want some more gold and richness. Maybe I add a -55 into my formula. There are so many different ways. So for me, I like to see a picture of what caramel is. So those are just some options based on what some of my favorite formulas are for caramel. So next question that we have here, -42 beige ash or -24 ash beige are going to be muted gold or blue muted. Perfect. Thank you for typing that in, Schwarzkopf. That is just telling us what those shades are. So I've talked a lot about the -42. It's one of my favorites. It's that beige ash. So it's that beige first and then ash. So these two shades are actually a couple of my favorites. the dash 42 and the dash 24, mainly because how many of us out there have heard the term dishwater blonde? My mom used to call my hair dishwater blonde, my natural color. I thought that was the ugliest term ever. So we came out with shades that we call muted desert instead. Doesn't that sound a lot prettier? So these muted desert shades are going to be the closest to a true level 7 or level 9 natural blonde tone. Now, dash 42 is going to be like my hair used to be in the summer. In the summer, the sun hits it, it gets this gold, this like beige tone first, and almost has this ash undertone to it. That's the dash 42. It's great. In the summertime, my hair likes to get that warmth. So we call it muted desert because if you think of sand when the sun is out, it has, you see that gold first, that beige first, but there's a hint of that ash reflection. Now, dash 42 would be in the winter when my hair didn't have any sun. It almost looked gray, but it had this hint of warmth. And think of the sand on a cloudy day. On a cloudy day, the sand can look almost gray with that hint of warmth under it. That is the dash 24. So thank you for that explanation. Love that. Okay, we have another question here. When highlighting gray, do you prefer lift and blend or 12 series? Great question. I have a question for you. In your highlighting stage, do you want to cover some of that gray or do you just want to lift the hair around the gray? That would determine. But for me, I actually like to use both. So whenever I'm highlighting salt and pepper hair, I like to highlight some pieces with a lightener and some pieces with lift and blend. And the reason I do that is because lift and blend is going to give a different type of lift than what lightener does. So if we think of what's happening between these two, if I'm using a lightener to do highlights, I'm only lightening those hairs that are darker. So for salt and pepper hair, that white hair lightener is doing nothing to it. There could be a slight bit of pigment, so you might see a little bit of warmth sometimes when you're lifting gray hair, but what you're really seeing is the warmth on those pieces that actually have pigment in them, and nothing's happening to the white hair. Whereas if I highlight with my lift and blend shades, or I guess you didn't, yeah, 12 series or lift and blend. Sorry, I know I said lightener and lift and blend, but I also have used 12 series and lift and blend. But typically, if I'm highlighting salt and pepper hair, I will use my lift and blend because my lift and blend is going to lift the virgin hair and also tone my highlights. Whereas a 12 series is my naturally pigmented hair, but it could leave a weird tone on my gray hair. So if I'm using a 12 series, I risk some of the white hair turning a weird tint. So if I'm deciding between lift and blend shades or a 12 series, I'm going to go lift and blend. But a lot of times I like to do a combo of lift and blend and my highlighting shades for that. Now, if somebody doesn't have a lot of gray hair and you want to do the 12 series, I think that that's a fantastic option. Or just use the dash 0 series in your 12 series. There is a 12-0 that's not going to have as much pigment weight and won't leave that tone. So if you do want to use a 12 series for highlighting on gray hair, I would choose 12-0, but my ultimate go-to would be lift and blend shades. So next question that we have, and reminder, keep typing your questions into the chat box. If we don't get them to them today, we will get to them next week. And don't forget, you can book your one-on-one with an educator to really get your questions answered one-on-one at switchwithskp.com. So check it out. All right, so next question we have here is using regular bleach from my mom's laundry room okay on my hair? That is a fun question. No, the answer to that would be no. If you use the bleach from your mom's laundry room, if you go outside, put that bleach on and go outside, it might lift some, but it's not the same type of lightener. So in Agora Real and in Blonde Me, we have what we call persulfates that are actually creating that lift, just different persulfates for our Blonde Me range than our Vario Blonde range. Now within that, we also have developers that we mix with the lightener. Remember, these are tested on live hair. The bleach in your mom's laundry room might create some lift, but it's going to be very unpredictable. You don't know how much lift, and it's not tested on hair. So you don't know what it's going to do to that hair. So if you want to create lift, highly recommend use Vario Blonde or Blonde Me, and you're going to get a much better result than the bleach from your mom's laundry room. So next question we have here, can we use Agora Real Absolutes, Agora Zero Am as toner with Vibrance volume that's only deposit and not lift? So these are two separate questions. One's Agora Real, and one's Agora Zero. So I'm going to answer them in two different ways. What you're asking for is deposit only and not lift. With Agora Royale, you have ammonia as your base. Whenever there's ammonia, there's always a chance for lift. So can you deposit only? You can sometimes deposit only on a coarse resistant white hair strand, but chances are you have that little bit of capability for lift. The only exception to that is within Agora, we have our silver white shades, and they come in a white box, not this blue box. The white box is meant to act like a Demi permanent. It has a lower amount of ammonia to not shift that natural base. So with 10 volume, the silver whites are not going to lift that base. But even our 9.5 series, our toners within Agora Real can shift the base a little bit. Now, the other question was, can I just deposit only with Agora Zero? Now, with Agora Zero, anything that is a level 9 or a level 10 within Agora Zero can be turned into a toner. However, you're not going to be using Agora Real developers. You're going to be using your 6-volume activator lotion. So in order to achieve that, if any level 9 or level 10 in Agora Zero can be turned into a toner by doing 1 part level 9 or level 10 in 3 parts of your 6-volume Vibrance activator. So 1 part of your shade to 3 parts of your activator lotion, stir that up, put it on, and it can turn it into a toner. I still say my best recommendation is Vibrance. However, if you're out of a shade available in Agora Zero, you could always do that. But typically we recommend if you're looking for an ammonia-free all over color, use Agora Zero for the new growth for permanent gray coverage, and then use Vibrance for your mid-lengths and ends. But in order to get that no lift and deposit only in Zero, it would be 1 part of any level or level 10 to 3 parts of your Vibrance activator lotion. In Agora Real, you're always going to risk shifting that natural base. Great question. Thank you for that, Angela. So next question, any tips on gray coverage for thick hair? We all know thick hair can be a little harder. Thick hair tends to be a bigger strand of hair, and sometimes it can be coarse and resistant. I'm going to give you top tips for gray coverage on thick hair, and then I'm going to give you some extra little tips. So first top tip is that -00 series that we were talking about earlier, which I don't know where she went. She's over here somewhere, but -00 is natural extra. That has 25% more pigment weight than the regular -0. So adding that into your formula is going to help that. Now, other option is the absolutes, which we spent a lot of time earlier talking about. These are those shades that have 30% more pigment weight than what you have in the regular Agora Real, and they are pre-blended for you in your coppers, your golds, your chocolates, your reds. Now, if you're like, hey, Amber, you know what? I've already used both of those, and I still don't get gray coverage around her hairline. She still has gray. Here's a couple of tips and tricks. First tip, perm papers or foil. Around the hairline, the hair can sometimes be resistant and not seem to want to take. So if you put perm paper or a foil here, it traps in the heat of the scalp and can allow you to get better coverage. Now, the other tip, we do not recommend using heat with any of our color products. However, if you put a cap on somebody with gray hair, that cap is going to trap in some of the heat of the scalp. So you have the opportunity to apply a cap. The other option is to drape a towel over that cap. Draping a towel over is going to hold in some of that heat. Now, if you're somebody that's like, Amber, I always use heat on my clients, then you can always add just 5 minutes worth of heat is my little tip. Don't recommend that from Schwarzkopf, just know heat can also create lift. So sometimes 5 minutes of heat, but if I do that, let it cool for the rest. Hopefully those little tips will help you. We've got a couple more questions here and not a lot of time. So Sabrina asks, can I use 0-77 on its own or added to a pastel toner like 9.5-5? I have this color in mind that I want to create using both of those toners. Great question. 0-77 is our booster we have it in Vibrance, and we also have it in Agora Real. So I think that you're talking about, I know you said Agora. I don't know if this is Agora Real or Agora Vibrance, but you can use it in either. Typically, the boosters or 0-77, a booster is meant to be mixed into a formula. It's not meant to be used on its own. Now, if you do use it on your own, you will see if you're on lighter hair, like if you're on a level 9 or above, it will look like this orange shade. But the problem is that the boosters on their own aren't going to last as long. So your longevity on a booster is up to 12 shampoos, whereas my longevity with a regular -5 is also 12 shampoos. So in that case, they're about the same, but in a regular shade in Vibrance is up to 25 shampoos. But in general, a booster is only going to last up to 12. So you can use this on its own. You would just mix it with your Agora Vibrance activator or an Agora Real, your Agora Real developer. However, just know that it's not going to last as long. It's meant to be added into a formula, and added in, it can actually be added up to 50% of your formula can be added with a booster with added developer. So for instance, if 9.5-5, which is a toner, gold toner, 9.5, it means pastel toner, and -5 is gold. My gold toner, I can use 50% of the formula. So I could do 20 grams of 9.5-5, 20 grams of 0-77, 20 and 20 is 40. So it would be 40 grams of my either Agora Vibrance activator, or if I'm in Agora Real, it'd be my Agora Real developer. So yes, you can add them together. You can use 0-77 on its own, but it is not what it's meant for. There are other shades like our Chroma ID that are colored conditioners for the hair, then maybe that would be a better option for you. So next up we have another question here. Can you explain how to fill the hair when going from a level 9 to a level 4? This is an excellent question. So first and foremost, I want to recommend that you're using Vibrance whenever you're filling the hair. And for those of you that don't know, when you go from a level 9 to a level 4, you have that underlying warmth that you need to add back into the hair. When you lift hair, you're getting rid of all the color pigments. So you need to add that underlying warmth, that pH underneath, so that you're seeing that warmth so that you get the color that you need. Because if I take a level 9 and put on 4-0, it's going to look muddy. It's not going to look pretty. That porous hair is going to grab the blue color molecules first. So these boosters can be used as fillers for the hair. We have our gold booster, our copper booster, and our red booster. If you're going all the way from a level 9 to a level 4, you need to add red, because you're going to be at a level 4, you're going to have that red underlying warmth. So just to show you, this is your level finder. This is your underlying warmth. So if I'm at a darker level, red is what I'm seeing. Now, if you were at a level 6, you could maybe mix 0-77 and 0-88. So if I'm filling with Vibrance, I'm going to take 0-88 equal parts with my activator gel. Apply that for up to 10 minutes. Simply rinse that out of the hair. Bring them back to the shampoo bowl and apply your final formula in Vibrance. So recommendation, use Vibrance to go from that level 9 to that level 4. You can fill it with your boosters, or if you're somebody who's like, you know what, I want to fill it with a regular color, you can still fill with a regular color. And if you're going down to a level 4, sometimes that's what I prefer to fill with. But if I am filling with a regular color for a level 4, you want to make sure that you're going at least 2 levels lighter than what your end result is. So that means if I'm filling with a shade, I want it to be at least 2 levels lighter. So you could use 7-88. It's a level 7 red extra. You could put this on the hair first with your 6 volume gel, let that sit for 10 to 20 minutes, rinse that from the hair, and put on your final formula. So those are a couple of options for filling. So let's get to our next question here. And our next question is toning level, like pre-lightened level 7-8, that's very brassy with an all over toner for someone who wants a honey kiss shade. You're thinking 7-24 or 9-24 to neutralize the orange, and then 8-0, 8-11, 7-55. So those are a lot of shades. So it's a natural, a level 8 natural, a level 8 Cendré extra, which is that blue violet, the level 7 gold extra, level 8 gold extra is that overkill. So for a level 7-8 brassy, for an all over toner, there are a lot of options. The thing you have to remember about brassy is that brassy is orange. So I need something that has a blue base. So actually, I love your idea of a 7-24 and a 9-24. A 7 and a 9 are going to bring you to a level 8. And that level 8 is perfect. And that blue being in there first is going to counteract that brassiness, but then you still have that beige tone. So you're still going to get a really pretty base. I really do think that's going to be a great option for that little bit of a sun-kissed. It may be a little bit cooler still, but you could add what you were saying about the 7-55, 8-55. You could add a little of that in if you wanted a little more gold. So maybe start with that 7 and 9-24 to make that level 8. And if that's not exactly what you want and you need more gold, go ahead and add in the -55. But great question and great answer for that. So good at formulating. All right. So I see that you're saying the ingredients say they use the same sulfates. Now that's referring to the lighteners that we have. The only lightener that has different persulfates is going to be our Blonde Me 9 Plus. They're just a stronger persulfate. It's a different type of persulfate in that it's going to eat through the hair a little bit quicker. And so I can look into the specifics of the persulfate for you, but it is our level 9 in order to get that extra lift does have a slightly different persulfate. So that is what that is about that creates that lift. Another question is E-0 ever coming back? E-0 was a tube of ammonia essentially that's going to give you one extra level of lift in your color formula. And my answer to that is probably not, because we have Pastel Fire that is our replacement for it. What is Pastel Fire, you may ask? Pastel Fire is something that can also help you achieve one extra level of lift. It is this down here. And this has just a slight cendre tone to it. So it's actually better than E-0 because it's going to give me that one extra level of lift in my formula, but it also has that slight cendre or blue violet to kick out underlying warmth. So is coming back? I don't know. Who knows? Maybe if you ask enough. I'm going to give you that little tip, guys. If you had something that went away, or maybe you're having, like any sort of issue with color, always call our hotline. We have a hotline and we also have a email address, and you can always take these options like I want E-0 again, and we listen to this. If there's enough people asking for E-0, then we will maybe consider bringing it back. So think about that. I want to remind you guys that I pretty much have gotten to most of these questions. However, if your question did not get answered, we were doing this next week on Tuesday. And then we also have the opportunity for you to get your one-on-one with an educator, because we only have 2 minutes left. So I am going to look and we'll choose one more question to answer. Okay, now let's see. Could I get a level 7 near platinum with a high lift? Great question. So can I get a level 7 near platinum with a high lift? And my answer to that is absolutely. So I said earlier, my money piece here, this blonde, is always done with a high lift. However, I actually even bring it down a little bit. So I use our high lift, which is this blue box. I use 10-, I believe it's just 10-0, but I like to have a little bit more warmth. So I actually add 9-7, a level 9 copper into mine. It's mainly 10-0 with that little bit. Now I'm a level 7 naturally, but I have a fine hair texture. So it's really easy for my hair to lift. So can you get a level 7 near platinum with high lift? Absolutely, especially if they have lighter eyes, a finer hair texture. If they have a coarser hair texture, do a test strand first, just to make sure that they don't have that underlying warmth. But if they're level 7, we typically recommend 40 volume with the 10 series to create that. But at a level 7, you don't even need the 12 series. You can actually get them to that platinum with 4 levels of lift. If it's a level 7, you'll want to use 40 volume. If it's a level 8 or above, you can use 30 volume. So maybe I'm a lighter level 7 because 30 volume is enough for me. All right. So taking a look here. All right. So I'm just going to remind you guys, because we are at 10 o'clock now, and this is a 1-hour Ask Me Anything. Don't forget to go to switchwithskp.com, book your one-on-one appointment with an educator to get any of your questions answered that I was not able to answer. And also, if you have any additional questions, we will be posting periodically for you to type questions for the next Ask Me Anything. And don't forget to join me next week. I'll be doing Ask Me Anything again on the 19th, which I believe is Tuesday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So join me there.